Hey y'all, welcome to Kamira's Kitchen. Today I'm going to show you some recipes that are going to be perfect as the weather is warming up. Whether you are having a cookout or you're just hanging out with your family outside, you guys are going to love these recipes. I am going to be doing some jerk barbecue ribs as well as some bacon and chive deviled eggs, a creamy Italian pasta salad, and some sweet and spicy baked beans. If you think these recipes look delicious, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. It really encourages me and helps promote my content. And if you want to join the family and be notified every single time I post, hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell. I am going to start first by preparing these ribs. I have some baby back ribs here and I am going to wash them thoroughly. Now you can use other types of ribs here if you want spare ribs or St. Louis style ribs. All of those would be fine. Once you wash them, put them in a bowl so that you don't drip any water across your kitchen, and clean out your sink, your hands, and the scissors that you cut the meat with. I'm first going to make a wet rub for these ribs from a tablespoon each of brown sugar, jerk seasoning, and green seasoning. I'll link in the description a recipe for my green seasoning. I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of browning to encourage the ribs to have a good color. I'm also going to put in half of a tablespoon of garlic powder and a teaspoon of pepper. I also decided later on to put in 4 cloves of garlic, and I mix this really well. When you make ribs, it's pretty common to use mustard as a binder for your powdered spices, but since we're doing that jerk thing, I thought that it would make more sense to use something like this as a binder instead. To prep my ribs, I am going to take off that thin membrane that is on the back of them. You want to use your fingers or a knife if you need to wiggle under that membrane and then pull it off. If you leave it on, it is going to make your ribs really tough, so I definitely like to take this off before I add on my paste. I'm going to rub this wet mixture all over the back, the sides, and the front of the ribs. I'm now going to season the ribs with this garlic, escallion, and allspice seasoning. If you cannot find this, you can use a jerk seasoning that is low in sodium, which is really key because the barbecue sauce that you add is going to have salt, so you don't want to overdo it. Now, y'all already know, okay, you already know who this is, okay, this is MSG, all right, I just put a little bit on there, okay, enhance the flavor, but you can leave it out if you want to. I'm also going to just add salt to my own taste. You know, pork can already be a little bit salty, plus when you add the barbecue sauce, you know, it has its own seasoning, so you don't really want to get crazy with it. Of course, the same seasonings I put on the back, I am also going to generously put on the front. Now, I don't have a grill, so I am going to be cooking these ribs in the oven. But let me know, are you a grill master? Do I have any people that love to grill out there? I want to take up the hobby, but y'all, I'm going to be honest with y'all, I'm a little bit scared of the flame. Like, I don't want to dry my meat out, okay? So give me any of your tips for grilling. I really want to experiment with it this summer. I added on some fresh thyme just to give the meat a little freshness and also make the juices taste really good. I'm going to wrap this up tightly in foil and put this in the oven at 350 degrees for an hour and a half. I'm also baking some Caribbean style barbecue chicken. I'll give you those recipes later. That's why I am putting my ribs at the bottom. Y'all, it's hot out here. Okay, if I'm firing up this oven, I'm going to be doing 2 things at one time. All right. Now it's been 90 minutes and I'm going to unwrap my ribs. They're looking nice and juicy and they are really tender even after this time. This is the jerk barbecue sauce I am using. I love this because one, it's not super sweet. I don't like super sweet meat. I know some of y'all like candy ribs basically. You know, y'all just be putting brown sugar and barbecue sauce full of sugar and then honey. That's just a little bit too much for me. This barbecue sauce has some sweetness, but it's certainly not over the top. But it has a lot of really good flavor. So that's really my preference when it comes to meat. I just don't like really sweet meat. Once I add my barbecue sauce to the top, I'm going to flip it over and add it on the back. You can use as much as you want. This is really where a lot of the flavor is going to be added to your ribs. To further enhance the flavor, I'm also going to baste the ribs with some of the pan juices that have leaked outside of the foil. This has a lot of concentrated flavor and I do not want to lose it. So I'm going to use my brush just to get some of this up and just baste my ribs with that too. I'm also going to be putting on some unsalted butter. All right, since I want this to brown up, the butter is going to help that happen. I'm also going to drizzle on just a little bit of honey. In total, this is probably about a tablespoon over the whole rack of ribs. Again, that's going to help it get a nice color. I'm going to put this in the oven at 450 degrees until it gets nice and brown. It took my ribs about 25 minutes to get to the color that I wanted, and I just basted it in between with that butter to further encourage that nice color. As you can see, it's been about 13 minutes and it's browning up very nicely. At the end of this cook time, these ribs were super tender, very flavorful and delicious. Let me know in the comments, are you guys going to try this rib recipe? It is so good. This creamy Italian pasta salad is seriously delicious. It has a really great flavor and it tastes best made the night before. It complements barbecue and just a tons of other side dishes. Y'all, you are going to want to make this. Into my pasta water, I'm adding some chicken bouillon and some salt, and I'm going to cook 8 ounces of those little squiggly pastas according to the package instructions. Then I'm going to drain them and rinse them really well with cold water. You have to do this because you want to immediately stop the cooking process. I'm also going to spray the pasta with a little bit of olive oil before I put it in a Tupperware container and put it in the fridge to completely cool off. While that is cooling, I went ahead and mixed together a dressing. And let me tell you something, you have to have a nice dressing on a pasta salad. My mom told me that they used to have potlucks at her school, and there was a teacher who brought in a pasta salad that was literally just pasta and Italian dressing, and that was it. Y'all, that is not pasta salad, okay? Don't be taking that to the cookout, all right? Y'all need to make this recipe. You actually got to do a little something, okay? So we're mixing together mayo, sour cream, relish, a little bit of mustard, smoked paprika, salt, pepper, of course, Italian dressing. And I do like this salad supreme. If you can get a hold of it, this is nice. That is going to make a stellar creamy dressing. Now, you can use a lot of different things for the veg. I use a shredded carrot, half of a cut up onion, and some mixed sweet peppers, but olives would be good. You could add in some cut up ham or salami. So many different things you could add. When you're done, adjust the seasoning to your taste and put this in the fridge overnight or at least a few hours. Let me know if you're going to make this. Ooh, baby, have you ever had some bacon and chive deviled eggs? The bacon adds a nice little saltiness. There's a good flavor from the herb. Y'all, this is so good. Now, today I tried something new. I've been hearing online about how you can make boiled eggs in the Instant Pot, and today I decided to try it for the first time. Multiple sources said that you're supposed to pressure cook this for 5 minutes, then natural pressure release for 5 minutes, and then let it sit in ice water for 5 minutes. However, I just felt that letting it natural pressure release for 5 minutes was going to be too long. So I pressure cooked the eggs for 5 minutes and then I did a quick release. I then took them out and put them in a bowl and I ran them under cold water until they were completely cool. Y'all, my freezer don't have an ice machine, so the ice thing just wasn't going to work for me, okay? I had really mixed feelings about how these boiled eggs turned out. So for one, I can say that they were super easy to peel. And this is a great method if you want to cook a lot of eggs at one time. However, you will see coming up, when I peeled them, the eggs were slightly tannish, which I couldn't explain, and it seemed that they were just a little bit overcooked because they had that gray line around the outside. So I'm glad that I didn't end up letting them natural pressure release for 5 minutes, or else they would have been way overcooked. However, when I tasted the eggs, they tasted just fine. So I don't really understand why the color changed. If you have ever made hard-boiled eggs in the Instant Pot, Please give me advice, okay? I would love to know how you do it, because clearly the 5-5-5 method is going to work for me. If you've ever done like 3 minutes or something like that, let me know what your results were like. Even though the whites had this slightly tannish color, they did still taste fine. So I still proceeded on with the recipe, but I definitely got to try this again. If you don't want to make your eggs in the Instant Pot, the way I always make them on the stove is to put my eggs in a pot, bring the water up to a rigorous boil, and then let them sit for 10 to 12 minutes, removed from the burner, and then cool them off with cool water. And that gives you perfect boiled eggs every time. I'm going to make the filling in my food processor. So I'm going to add my egg yolks, as well as about 2 tablespoons of sweet relish, about a half a tablespoon of mustard. And in total, I used about 3 tablespoons of mayo, a little bit of Creole seasoning just to my taste. I like to add some hot sauce as well. Not only does it add just a little bit of spice, but I like the vinegar taste that it adds to the filling. After I blended this for about 30 seconds, I took my spatula and went around the side. I felt like it needed more mayo. So really, with deviled eggs, you just have to feel things out. My mom really put me on to making a filling that was a little bit more stiff. I usually did a really loose one, but she was right. The stiff one is really tasty. Now, I do not have a piping bag. Okay, honey, I don't even be messing with like cake decorating and things like that. But baby, y'all know what we do got. You'll know we got Ziploc, okay? And today I actually got the name brand. Look at me, because I used to be having, that great value, but I ain't mad at it. I'm going to add in my filling. I'm going to twist the bag, and then that's going to push all the filling to a corner. In order to pipe, you just snip the corner, and then you are good to go. I have all of my egg whites here, and I am just going to start filling them up in a little twirl design. I'm just feeling fancy today. I do love those deviled eggs when they have like those little star tips, and those are super pretty, but y'all, this is just for the family, so I'm not even worried about that. While my eggs were cooking, I had some bacon cooking in the air fryer. I cooked 2 slices of bacon at 350 for about 10 minutes. If you don't want to do the pork, of course, you could stop here. You can fill it up with your filling and then just add some chive and a little bit of paprika, and that's perfect. But I cut up some bacon bits and I added those on top as well. Another good alternative to pork in this recipe would be to saute up some medium shrimp with a little bit of Creole seasoning. Shrimp deviled eggs are super delicious and tasty. And at that point, I feel like we're making it like a little meal. I mean, you got all this protein and stuff. Baby, I don't even need no main course. When I got that, I'm good to go. I'm adding on my chive here just to make everything look cute. And y'all, this is some delicious deviled eggs. Let me know if you are going to make this recipe. No barbecue is complete without some baked beans, so let's get right into it. For my sweet and spicy baked beans, I'm first going to cook a half of a pound of 85-15 ground beef. I do not like using very fatty ground beef in this recipe because I actually like to keep the fat and all that flavor inside of the baked beans, and I don't want to get it oily. I'm then going to add in some beef bouillon and some pepper, and I'm going to just stir this around to season the beef. For the spiciness, I'm going to add 1 jalapeno, and then I'm going to use about half of a red bell pepper. That little spiciness really balances out the sweetness that we typically have in baked beans, in my opinion. Go and give it a try, okay? It's really not all that spicy. I'm then going to put in some garlic and herb seasoning, okay? The same one I used on the chicken, as well as about 2 to 4 tablespoons of barbecue sauce. You just use, as much as you like. I'm then going to put in 1 can of baked beans and some mustard, about a teaspoon, and I'm going to add in just a little bit of water because I rinsed that can out because we ain't leaving behind that sauce. All right, and I am going to let this simmer uncovered on medium low for about 15 minutes. I'm then going to cover it and simmer it for about 15 more minutes. If you want, you can finish baking these off in the oven instead of simmering on the stove, but it is up to you. Y'all, are you going to make these recipes? This food was so good. Honey, my family tore into this. You guys know that I love you and Jesus loves you, and I thank you so much for supporting this channel. God bless you all, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.